Welcome, everyone, to Monday Match Analysis. I'm Gill Gross. It is the Wimbledon 2025 third round show. After the first two rounds were chaotic, frenetic, headline-filled, definitely upset-filled, this third round felt like a natural and inevitable cool-down because no tournament in history has maintained the kind of chaotic energy that Wimbledon had through the first 4 days. You see that in TV shows, too. Like the show I'm watching right now, The Bear. First two seasons, every single scene was like an 140 mile per hour flat serve up the tee. Has it slowed down a little bit? Yeah, but I still love it, and I'm sure it'll pick back up. And for those who get that reference, I hope you enjoyed it. A lot of results to get into. We'll go through a bunch of stuff. I actually do want to start off with something that isn't a tennis match. It's a headline. A couple of interviews that Goran Ivanisevic did following Stefanos Tsitsipas, who he started working with a month ago, his first round exit from Wimbledon because of retirement. He gave two interviews. The first one that started going all around was with Sport Club, and then the second one was for Clay Magazine. I won't get into the Clay Magazine one much. They are pretty similar. What I will do is I'm going to link the Clay Magazine story, which is a good one. Everybody should read it, in this week's edition of The Draw, which is my newsletter that I curate along with my partner Ben, the best tennis content on the internet every week. It goes straight into your inbox every Tuesday morning. Subscribe to The Draw at thedraw.tennis. Link is in the description. And again, I will put the Goran Ivanisevic interview in Clay Magazine in The Draw. But for now, we'll take the quote that he gave to Sport Club. I'm just going to read the whole thing first. He said, quote, "It's a really simple situation. It's simple and it's not simple. I've talked to him many times. If he solves some things outside of tennis, then he has a chance of being back to where he belongs. He's too good a player to be out of the top 10. If not, then he has no chance. My duty is to fix some technical things on the court. That's the easiest thing. The other stuff he has to fix on his own." Ivanisevic continues, quote, "The desire is there, but he does nothing to improve things. It's all I want, but I don't see any progress. He has to find a solution for his back issue. I was shocked. I've never seen such a poorly prepared player in my life. Me, at my age, with this bad knee, I'm 3 times in better shape than him. I'm not sure what he was doing the previous 12 months, but his current shape is very poor." Strong stuff from Ivanisevic. What are the major takeaways? Big headlines. Item number 1, Ivanisevic thinks that Tsitsipas is out of shape and has not put in the work to maintain the fitness of a high-level professional tennis player. And the second headline, and these two things are related, but I don't think they're the same thing, is, this all comes after an exit via retirement. But what this tells me is that Ivanisevic believes that this back injury is either preventable in some way. That's what it sounds like. He feels like it's preventable in some way, and Tsitsipas either hasn't managed it correctly, hasn't taken all of the necessary steps that a professional needs to take, whether it be warm-up, cool-down, rehabilitation, or preventative work in the gym. I mean, this is the thing that has really accelerated in recent years, but it's something that you hear about all the time from players. There is so much work that goes into staying healthy, so much work that goes into it, and withstanding the rigors of this unbelievably taxing sport, incredibly taxing calendar. And essentially, Ivanisevic is thinking, look, this back injury, this isn't unlucky. This isn't a bad break. This is something that you got to figure out and fix. And I don't think Ivanisevic would strike that tone if he wasn't seeing certain habits and a lack of work being put in from his point of view. So that's the takeaway. I was surprised in some ways to see this. In another way, I wasn't surprised to read these comments at all. The reason why I wasn't fully surprised is, one, we've heard some similar stuff already about Tsitsipas publicly from somebody who had insider knowledge inside his camp, and that's physio Jerome Bianchi, who I believe it was last year when he left the team, and upon parting ways with the team, he gave an interview with, I believe, a Greek outlet and said negative things about Tsitsipas's commitment, his motivation, his work ethic, and then in a large way, the family dynamic. And it was he did not have kind things to say about the helpfulness of Apostolos and the Tsitsipas family. So that was Jerome Bianchi, his physio, who left. That was kind of the first time that we heard some of this. I had heard this gossip as well. I'm not going to say any more, but I had heard similar stuff in the ether about Tsitsipas in recent years. But I think, gossip aside, certainly, Jerome Bianchi aside, you just look at what's happened here in terms of the trajectory of Tsitsipas's career, and it makes very little sense in a lot of ways. You have a guy who in his early 20s, over a long, multi-year sample size, was a top 8 player perennially. And now he's in his physical prime age-wise, yet in a similarly large sample size, multiple years now, there has been clear and sharp decline. So how is it possible that a top 8 talent in their athletic prime without any catastrophic injury has gone south so sharply, unless the work ethic and the professionalism has fallen off somehow? I just don't see any other possible explanation. I have long assumed that Tsitsipas's work rate has fallen, that his commitment level has fallen. But unless somebody like Goran, and to some extent as well Jerome Bianchi, unless people like that come out and say it, it's very hard for me, somebody like me in my position, to assume any of that without knowing, with any kind of clear conscience. But was I surprised to read all this, given all of that? Well, I was not surprised by the contents. What is surprising is that Goran Ivanisevic, knowing very well how the media works, being Novak Djokovic's coach for many, many years, he knew that all of this stuff he was saying was going to get blasted out everywhere, that it was going to live far beyond the confines of Sport Club and Clay magazine in the era of aggregation. So why did he decide to publicly say all this stuff? He decided to publicly say all this stuff because either A, he thinks Tsitsipas needs this stuff out there in order to change. It could be he's trying to create the change by applying some public pressure, by I don't know, like almost like imposing a form of tough love on Tsitsipas by going public with all this stuff. That's option number one. Option number two, by the way, maybe I'm forgetting. Maybe I'm not considering other options that might exist. But the second thing that I can think of, and I think this is also a legitimate possibility, is that Ivanisevic is trying to sabotage this relationship, or the relationship is already over. I don't think it's the latter, but the reason why you don't often see a coach slam a player like this in public is because usually it's a good way for said coach to get fired. And the history here, I'm not saying this is going to happen again, but Jerome Bianchi, the physio who left Tsitsipas's team and then made unkind comments about their work habits, he got sued by the Tsitsipas family. So what he said, the reaction to him going to the media and popping off at the mouth was not a very positive reaction from the Tsitsipas family. They did not take kindly to that at all. So this becomes very interesting, and that's why I led the show with it, because it's just, you don't see this very often, and it's just fascinating to think why did Goran Ivanisevic decide to go public with all this stuff? It also is illuminating. And I do not think that Bianchi or Ivanisevic are off base at all. I have no reason to think they're off base at all. Now, you can go into some deeper reasons. Why has Tsitsipas experienced this dip in... It's all connected. Again, I can throw out all the buzzwords: desire, motivation, professionalism, work ethic, determination, willingness to suffer, focus, concentration on tennis, whatever you want to say, right? Why has that deteriorated? That's a whole nother story. Can't speculate on that. Can't. But Tsitsipas has been open to some extent about his own struggles with just enjoying the whole process of being a pro tennis player. Particularly last year, he had some things to say, and we've heard similar stuff at Wimbledon. It's becoming a theme of Wimbledon, where Tsitsipas has admitted that he's lost a lot of that spark, and that this stuff like this can be the result of it. So that's all I've got on that. Let's monitor the situation, and let's get into some tennis at Wimbledon. I want to start, and it's not obvious which match I should start with. After the second round, it was obvious. I was obviously going to do Cilic-Draper. I think I'm going to do Fonseca-Jarry first. Let's do that first. I just think that's the one that most people will be most interested in. I was blown away by Jarry's level for the first two sets of this match. I just was really in awe of how much power was coming from all directions and how little he was missing. And that starts with the serve, 129 mile per hour average on first serve, hovering around 70% in. 110 miles per hour, I should say, on second serve. Not much of a reprieve. So he was getting a lot of hittable +1 balls, even on his second serve points. Short returns were getting absolutely obliterated by the Jarry forehand. I don't know how many times Fonseca hit a short or weakish return, and Jarry hit a forehand so good that Fonseca couldn't even move for it. Returns in play, low. I thought, Joao struggled with the big serve of Jarry, and return in play percentage ended up being 48% for Nico for the match, which is pretty close to what he's been doing. Actually, it's identical to what he's been doing throughout the tournament. So Fonseca didn't do any better than Rune, didn't do any better than Tien. At least the average, the aggregate between those two. Whatever that means, right? And aggressive returning as well. If you look at the breaks of serve that Fonseca grabbed in sets 1 and 2, most of these points were being played on Jarry's terms from the jump because he landed hard and damaging returns. So it was power tennis at its best. It's the best tennis I have seen Nicolas Jarry play in well over a year, since the Madrid run, easily in these first two sets against Fonseca. Now, the sloppy service game, it finally came, start of the third set. You saw Fonseca lift his energy. You saw the crowd lift their energy. And Joao can be such a momentum player where just everything starts to snowball, and the shot making and the intensity in the feet and the racket head acceleration, they all go up 10%. You ride this wave of energy, and Fonseca kind of blitzed his way through the third set. And in the fourth set, I still thought that Jarry's ground game was at a point where it was manageable for Fonseca. And Fonseca was applying the majority of the scoreboard pressure throughout the fourth set. But Fonseca went 0 for 6 on break points. A lot of it was just great clutch serving from Jarry, who got so many free points when he needed them all through the fourth set. Terrific serving. Fonseca did have one chance that sticks out in my head. It was love 40 at 4-all in the fourth. You're really thinking this is probably going 5 at this point, especially because Fonseca was not having too much trouble holding serve for the most part. And Fonseca had a good look at a backhand pass, and he didn't do enough with it. Gave Jarry a pretty routine forehand volley, which he put away. Huge serving by Jarry for the rest of the game to get out of it and hold. And this set goes to a tiebreak. Let's pick up the tiebreak at 4-2 because a couple of interesting things happened. First of all, Fonseca's up the mini break and he's got a second serve look. And they're in a backhand exchange. Jarry hits one really deep that forces Fonseca to kind of push a backhand cross court. Not much on it. Jarry steps in, attacks with a hard, flat backhand cross court, which sets up a short forehand approach. He goes inside out behind Fonseca. Kind of a short inside-out forehand approach. And Fonseca is there, but it's a low backhand on the stretch, and Joao hits the passing shot into the net, trying to roll it short cross court. On the next point, body serve by Jarry, forehand inside in build, forehand inside in again. This time it forces the error with Fonseca again stretched out defensively. So, first of all, those were two really good points by Jarry. Came through off the ground when he needed it. Backhand side at 4-2, forehand side at 3-4. One of the things that's so great about Jarry is that he's able to implement his attacking style off of both wings pretty much equally. Forehand's bigger than the backhand, but relatively, they're both basically tier 1, power ground strokes. But watching these points, just looking at them, watching them, I can't help but think these are the kinds of defensive plays that Fonseca is going to need to make if he wants to be great. The next step in his development, you've heard me say a lot, to me it's the movement. And if you just look at his ability to get out to these balls with a strong foundation in the legs, maintain balance, which he didn't on that backhand passing shot. I thought he kind of collapsed. Just the strength in the legs and the foot speed and all that, the difference between making these defensive plays and not, to me, that's the key for Fonseca. We saw it 2 points in a row there where I just think the best defenders, based on the balls Jarry hit, I think the best defenders handle those balls, both of them. Anyway, it's 4-all now. Second serve, Jarry hits a 109 mile per hour ace out wide. Oh, you know what? I think I made a mistake. Because Fonseca was serving at 2-4. So I'm sorry. He was up a mini break, but it wasn't Jarry serving. It was Fonseca. Okay, so now it's 4-all. Jarry is serving. Second serve goes out wide 109 miles per hour for an ace, which was just a really clutch second serve. Goes back to one of our themes of the match, which is Jarry got more free points because he served so darn well, and that was key. This 4-5 point, serve back to Fonseca. I did not like the way Joao played this 4-5 point. I thought he fell in love with his backhand. He hit one great backhand down the line. Jarry got it back. He hit another really good backhand down the line. Jarry got it back. Then he went to hit a third good backhand down the line, put it in the net. If you hit a great backhand down the line, your reward, in my opinion, like Fonseca's reward for that is he got weak replies from Jarry from a deep court position. He had time to run around. You hit a great backhand down the line. Awesome. Now make a forehand. That's what you've earned. You've earned a forehand. And he didn't do it. He decided with plenty of time to accept a backhand, in my opinion, because it just felt good. I think that once he hit that first backhand down the line, he kind of fell in love with the sensation of it, and he just sat there and he tried to hit it. He hit it one more time, and then he tried to hit it again. This is something... Now, look, Fonseca might be a little bit more like Sinner, meaning he feels like he can do point-ending damage off of either wing, which is great. It's part of what makes him really good. But even Sinner has gotten better about running around when he has a chance. Maybe a little less on grass, but, that's not a mistake you'll ever see Alcaraz make. You'll never see Nadal make that mistake. You never saw Federer make that mistake. On a big point, if they can create a comfortable forehand to attack, they're not taking a backhand. They're just not. And I thought Fonseca had a chance at 4-5 here to hit a forehand, and he didn't. He made a backhand on forced error. Then at 4-6, another second serve. And I don't know what happened here. Jarry hit a forehand down the line, just a trade. And Fonseca mishit a backhand slice really badly. I don't know if it took a bad bounce. I don't know if it was the wind because it was quite breezy conditions, but just mishit the backhand slice. That was the match. That was the match. And I think I don't have any huge takeaways for Fonseca other than highlighting what I already highlighted in the fourth set tiebreak. Jarry has probably had the most impressive Wimbledon run out of anybody. Like, who's been more impressive than Nicolas Jarry? He came through qualifying, beat Pavel Kotov, who can play, beat Lucas Klein, who can play in qualies. And then his run so far is Rune, Tien, Fonseca. I don't know if anybody through the fourth round has a better collection of wins. And for Jarry, as a feel-good story, yeah. I mean, he has suffered in the last year. That much is very clear. An infection, nerve damage, balance issues. He dealt with some wild stuff. I'm not even really clear on all the nitty-gritty details of what Jarry's been dealing with, but he was a shell of himself for a long time, and he has come alive here with a really great run. This was a great win against Fonseca. I thought it would have been interesting to see it go 5. I was hoping that it would go 5 because I was really curious to see how that would play out. But Jarry gets it done in this fourth set tiebreak. What next? Let's check in on the top 3. Let's check in on Djokovic, Alcaraz, Sinner. We'll do them together. None of it is we don't need to dive super deep into any of their matches thus far. For Novak, the first strike tennis has been utterly deadly. First serve win percentages, 82%, 89%, 82%. That's his first 3 matches so far. So he lands a first serve. He's winning over 8 out of 10 points, which is what we've been seeing from Djokovic, particularly the last 3 years at Wimbledon, where guys are just not winning first serve points off of him. They're just not. That said, that's kind of the expectation. That's the given for Novak. I know that's going to be there. The stuff that I look out for Djokovic is how well is he doing the stuff that is a little bit harder for him these days? How well is he moving? How well is he sliding? How well is he playing out of the corners? Has he lost a little bit of that ability on grass to dig hard into his defensive shots and just play so well at end range? And to me, the answer looks like no. No, I don't think so. No, don't get me wrong. I think he was dictating more points than not against Khachanov, but the other thing about Misha Khachanov is he does a great job of remaining unattackable. And I thought Djokovic responded with a high level of patience in the baseline rallies. He was very comfortable at times just kind of trusting his legs, digging in physically. And the defensive game of Djokovic gave Khachanov fits. Misha has an underpowered ground game, so you would think in this matchup that he might have some trouble getting the ball through the court against Djokovic if he was moving well. And yeah, he was moving well. That's all I got on Novak. Sinner beat Pedro Martinez easily today. And look, for Pedro, shoulder injury coming into the match, but he's not going to withdraw. Playing on center court at Wimbledon is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Not in a million years, if I can try to put myself in Pedro Martinez's shoes, if I can try, not in a million years am I withdrawing from a match just because I can't serve hard. Like, I'm just going to play. I don't care. I do not blame Pedro Martinez one bit. And by the way, he he played competitive from the baseline. He couldn't be competitive in the match because he couldn't serve. His first serve average was 98 miles per hour. So ultimately, in the grand scheme of the match, he wasn't going to be able to really play with Jannik. But he could play from the baseline, and he did what he could, and he lost 6-1, 6-3, 6-1. Sinner through 3 matches hasn't just been clinical. He has been historically clinical. It's going around Instagram right now that he broke Federer's record for least games lost through 3 matches at Wimbledon. So through to the round of 16, least games lost. Federer dropped only 19 games one year. But ITF, I'm sure ITF is right. That's not true. Jannik actually tied the record, which was set in 1972 by Jan Kotis. If I'm pronouncing his name correctly, I've never heard of him, actually. But yeah, I mean, it's historic domination. And I tweeted that stat on Twitter, and I can add it to the collection of the numerous times which I have tweeted a stat out and have proceeded to, people have been triggered, offended by these tennis stats. It's unbelievable. I can't believe how offended people can get by a tennis stat. People were so upset in my replies because apparently it's only because of the draw and not because Jannik Sinner is just like a good enough player to beat the brakes off of these guys in a way that most players just simply wouldn't be good enough to do this. And by the way, Vukic is good on grass. Vukic is an Eastbourne semifinalist. Vukic has qualified. He qualified for Queens. I think he qualified for another grass court tournament in the lead up. This notion that Sinner has had this like generationally easy first 3 matches. Yes, Pedro Martinez, as far as third rounds go, is like pretty astonishingly soft. But Nardi and Vukic, that's like standard. Okay? And no, he doesn't get an easier draw because he's the number 1 seed. Let me explain, because that was another thing that I was seeing. Seeds 1 through 16 are all in the same boat for the first 3 rounds. They are guaranteed an unseeded player in the first 2 rounds, any unseeded player, and then in the third round, they're guaranteed a player between 17 and 32. So I did the math here. 54 years of Wimbledon in the Open era, top 16 seeds times 54, 864 players have been in the seeding position that Sinner has been in. And only Jannik and our good friend, Jan Kotis, have managed to drop so few games. So if you think that that's a silly stat that we should not acknowledge, yeah, I don't know about that. I don't think it matters for the end of the tournament. He's not going to beat Alcaraz because of this. He's not going to beat Djokovic because of this. It doesn't matter for that. But can we be like, yeah, impressive. Wow, you're crushing these guys. That's impressive. Yes, we're allowed to say that. Okay? Same thing for Djokovic. He's been impressive. Okay? All right. As for Alcaraz, 4-set win over Struff. Very similar to like all the Struff-Alcaraz matches that have been played throughout time. Struff always seems to take a set. He always has taken a set. It's definitely an uncomfortable matchup for Carlos, and an uncomfortable matchup, I think, basically for everybody, because whenever you make a mistake inside the court, you are brutally attacked. And you're attacked with court position, you're attacked with pace, you're attacked with forward net rushing pressure. And also, and I think for Alcaraz, this is particularly stressful, you can't hit a bad serve without getting attacked either. Not dissimilar to Nicolas Jarry. I just think for Struff, it's a little bit more reliant on taking time away and coming forward, where Jarry actually likes to hang back a little bit more and buy himself time for, big looping ground strokes, or not looping, big winging ground strokes. A little bit different in how they go about things. And certainly Struff likes to come forward a lot more than Jarry. But anyway, similar kind of thing. All out attack from all angles. And you had a little bit of the up and down concentration, I think, for Alcaraz. Went away for a second, the second set. Fourth set was a little wobbly. And then 4-all, it's like, zoop, turns it on. Great final 2 games to finish. And that's that. Again, do I think that it is meaningful for the rest of the tournament that Sinner and Djokovic have been rolling and Alcaraz has already lost 3 sets? Not really, other than the fact that I think Alcaraz needs to be careful not to play too many long, taxing matches just to make sure that he has a full tank of energy. But other than that factor, no, I don't think it's all that important. The only other thing I want to say about Alcaraz is I feel like there's a real mindset shift that he's undergone in the importance of location serving, because he, first of all, actions speak louder than words, and the fact that he changed his serve technique is the most important variable in this entire conversation. But if you listen to what he's been talking about all throughout Wimbledon, I just want to point this out. After the Fognini match, he was like, I got to serve better. After the Tarvit match, he said, okay, I served better, but I didn't serve well enough. I have to serve better. I know it's so important. And then against Struff, again, he recognized, and I didn't see what he said after the match, but against Struff, it's a guy where he absolutely recognizes that the most important shot is the serve. And I just want to give Carlos a little bit of credit here, because I do think that there's been an evolution of mindset on the serve. There's no way he was thinking that way as a young player. And it showed in how he was serving, and it showed in his development. You know, classic Spanish player who's going to beat everybody from the back of the court. He didn't feel like the serve needed to be a hallmark of his game. But as he's pressed up and joined the elite ranks of professional tennis, he's realized, I don't want to say he's realized, he has set the bar high for himself in terms of how well he wants to serve. And I've been struck by that evolution. I want to throw that out there. I want to go through some women's results. Raducanu, Sabalenka felt like the real headliner on Thursday, without a doubt, under the lights. They play a good match. And I guess I'll start with Sabalenka, who, I mean, there were some shaky moments in this first set, to say the least. But if there's one thing that you wanted to see from Sabalenka coming from Roland Garros to Wimbledon, it's the emotional control. It's the composure. And you got to give her this. Like, she definitely displayed a level of calm despite having every reason to lose her shit once again. I mean, if you really look at what happened here. She had 7 set points and got the yips on her backhand return. Could not make a backhand return. Just kept missing it over and over and over again. And then in the tie break, she's up a mini break. It's 4-5. She hits a huge backhand cross court that draws an absolute sitter. A ball for Raducanu that's going to land 2 feet in front of the net. It's like a little pop-up. And Sabalenka tries to take it out of the air, forehand drive volley, and misses it. Could have really done anything on that shot. Could have let it bounce. Could have just hit a little dinky drop volley. Would have won the point. Could have done anything except for what she did. At 5-all, second serve Raducanu, bad footwork by Sabalenka, reaching and misses a return. Now it's set point Raducanu, having saved 7 of her own set points. And what do we see from here? We see the soft skills of Sabalenka, which seems to be the case more and more often for Aryna as her career progresses. But at 5-6, she ends up executing a somewhat difficult backhand drop shot. She was around the baseline. Ball was coming in with some pace, and she just couldn't have hit it more perfectly than she did. It was a perfectly executed drop shot, really stunning. And then a couple points later, after a good serve plus forehand from Sabalenka at 6-all, she hits a big backhand return cross court, the very return that she had been missing over and over again on all these set points. She actually hit a good one here. Deep cross court, allowed her to step into the next ball with a forehand approach, and didn't quite move all that well to this volley, but she, on the full stretch and above the level of her head, hits a very delicate forehand drop volley to win the set. So a really good touch by Sabalenka to save the set point, to convert her own set point, and that's the opening set. One thing on the Raducanu side in this tiebreak, before I talk about the larger themes from Emma's perspective, 91 mile per hour second serve into Raducanu's backhand hitting zone on this set point, and Emma did nothing with it. Nothing. It was, that's the regret. That's the one swing that she has to regret from this match, is she put that return right into the middle of the court for no real good reason. Okay. The other thing for Emma, let me start with the positive. I kind of feel like she's maximizing right now with what she has. I think the identity is clear. Her decision-making is clear. She's more consistent overall. She's competing well. All the things that are in her control seem to be in a really good direction right now. What was also kind of clear watching this particular matchup, and I think it's been true in the Swiatek meetings as well and at the slams, is Raducanu's at a pretty massive power deficit. First serve, forehand especially. The backhand, I think, can hang a little bit better, but the first serve and the forehand are very underpowered. So she becomes so reliant on ball placement, good spot serves, high percentage of first serves, taking the ball really early, and being super accurate in terms of how she's distributing her shots. And that can take her so far, right? But there were +1 forehands where I thought she hit a good first serve and got a good forehand to attack, and she was not able to generate enough on it, and Sabalenka was able to get back into the point. And the forehand to forehand exchanges in this match, like when they were going toe-to-toe in the cross court, the ball speeds were so lopsided. Raducanu just seemed so outgunned. You expect that really for anybody when it's Sabalenka, but it was striking just how wide the disparity was. And I think that makes things really hard for Emma. I mean, maybe she could have changed direction down the line a little bit more often than she did, but that's easier said than done. Obviously, you risk more errors when you're doing that. What I'm thinking as I'm watching this match is, can Emma reach for a little bit more power on the forehand? Because I feel like a couple of years ago, she had longer technique on the forehand that allowed her to build a little bit more momentum through the hitting zone. And it has gotten very, very, very compact. Not recently. I'm not saying like it's gotten compact since Pecci has come along. I'm saying before then. I'm saying the last full, year and change. Raducanu's forehand, it looks very, very compact to me. And I just don't think I think she might be leaving some stuff on the table in terms of her ability to generate pace. And I thought it just looked needed in this match against Sabalenka. But the big takeaway is a great job by Aryna staying calm, because, between all the set points gone, yips on the backhand return, pretty deafening environment. I get it. The Wimbledon crowd is polite. It's not like the French crowd who's not going to even let you serve. But it's pretty ear splitting in there. And when you are choking and the crowd is going nuts and those two things are happening at the same time, which was the case in the second set, not the easiest thing to deal with. And Sabalenka did a good job forcing herself to stay calm. So that's that. There was also a big upset on the women's side. Madison Keys losing to Laura Siegemund. Yes, if you would believe it. My pick to win the title on the women's side, Madison Keys, out in the third round. Now, she did, I'll lead with this. I guess I'll lead with this. She did skip her press conference saying that she felt ill, so that might have had something to do with it. But she also lost to Tatiana Maria in Queens. And in the span of a few weeks, when you lose to both Tatiana Maria and Laura Siegemund, something tells me there's some stuff about the things they do that you just don't like. Right? And it's funny doing the compare and contrast. Keys at the Australian Open goes through a murderer's row, all of the biggest, baddest, best ball strikers in women's tennis. Swiatek, Collins, Rybakina, Sabalenka. She beat all these players in Australia. Goes to the grass, loses to two players who barely hit the ball at all. You know what I mean by that. It's all respect for what they actually do, but power is not one of it, not part of the equation. What do? They bother Maddie's contact points. They keep it low on her. They change speeds, especially Siegemund, who is willing to go to the drive sometimes. And Maddie is like inside the baseline waiting for something slow. And then she gets something fast. It actually is almost as if Siegemund hit the ball 90 miles per hour. She didn't, but it feels like that for Keys. It's also the up and back movement and changing speeds is part of this. Bothering contact points is part of this. It's also forcing Keys to move up and back a lot, which she doesn't seem to like. She had no answer for the Siegemund drop shot throughout the match. She wasn't reading it. She wasn't comfortable once she got up there. And a big part of this is Maddie not being comfortable at the net, especially when these women are hitting this low midcourt ball. This low midcourt ball is really the shot that is proven to be Keys' kryptonite in these matches, because she can't attack the ball from her ankles, and because it's grass, it's staying low. Wouldn't happen on the other surfaces quite as much. But not only can Keys not attack from her ankles, certainly not without coming forward and finishing a volley, she also can't defend from midcourt. She can't defend from halfway between the baseline and the service line. So this low short slice where Keys is going down low from this awkward part of the court, it's just a nightmare for her. She missed so many approach shots. She missed so many attacking balls from well inside the court, and it's because she just didn't feel comfortable off of this shot. Second serve of Keys, also pretty diabolical. Probably the worst second serve performance of her career. She was 1 for 19. And for Siegemund, a lot of it for Siegemund was like stepping just way inside the baseline and either like chip and charging or drop shotting off of it or hitting from a high contact point, like a really hard knifing slice. It was very interesting to watch. So that's that. I want to do like maybe 30, 40 minutes on Taylor Fritz. No, I'm just kidding. I know a lot of Fritz has been getting a lot of airtime, but not only on Monday Match Analysis. Fritz has been getting a lot of airtime on ESPN too. 2 5-setters on center court in prime time. Okay, so I'm willing to make fun of myself a little bit, but yeah, it's been a very Taylor heavy tournament. I do not have much to go over with the Davidovich Fokina win. Fritz in 4. The obvious difference when these two play is the serve firepower, but I actually don't think it was the biggest deal in this match. I don't think it was the main deciding factor. Because Davidovich Fokina, really good, twitchy, athletic returner, did a good job of making returns back in play. But these are two players, Fritz and Davidovich Fokina. They don't come to the net. They're making returns back. They're not super proactive from the back of the court. So these guys are playing a lot of long rallies, a lot of running side to side, a lot of forehands and backhands. The weak link on the court was Alejandro Davidovich Fokina's forehand by far. And that was the deciding factor in this match. You could compare it with Fritz's forehand, which is solid, and we can make that comparison right now. Fritz's forehand, 18 winners, 18 unforced errors. Davidovich Fokina's forehand, 7 winners, 28 unforced errors. Gonna leave it at that. Let's do... Which match am I looking? Oh, I want to do Mensik. Yep. Jakub Mensik. Quarterfinal pick, which I thought was in decent shape considering most would have had either Draper or Bublik coming out of this eighth. It's not going to be any of those guys because Flavio Cobolli, who came into this grass court season for his career 3-6 on the grass. This year, a couple of wins in the lead-ins, but you weren't really sure coming into this match because Cobolli's first couple wins were against opponents outside the top 200. But not only did Flavio Cobolli beat Jakub Mensik, he blew him out. This was one of those rare blowout upsets that you don't see very often. And my big takeaway here was Flavio Cobolli was a guy who I am really high on. I've expressed that before. And I'll just say it right now. I think he could be one of the big stories in tennis in the second half. He's one guy who I think will be a top 10 player at some point. And I don't know, I don't know if that's a popular opinion or not, but it's certainly something that I've staked some ground in. Anyway, big takeaway here is the serve, his weakest shot, really coming through for him. Cobolli has been a guy who I felt all year, he is just a decent serve away from being a huge problem for a lot of guys. And I'll go big picture in a moment, but first let me zoom in on probably the most important moment in the match. 5-4 second set. Cobolli looking to take a 2-0 lead. He's down break point, at out, hits a good wide serve. Weak return from Mensik. Cobolli runs around, forehand inside in. Great acceleration, no doubt winner on the inside in. Next 3 deuce points as they're going back and forth. The next 3 deuce points are ace-T, service winner wide, and then a service winner body to close the game. And go up 2-0. And then from there, Mensik, I didn't love his body language or his compete level at really any point throughout the match, but certainly in the third set, it looked like Jakub was mostly a player who was, I don't know how strong to be here. It's not like he was tanking. It's not like he was throwing a tantrum, but it seemed a little bit mopey, if you know what I mean. It's just what it looked like. Okay, serve damage, though, for the match. And this is shocking. Aces end up being Mensik 11, Cobolli 9. Now, mind you, you can look at the last 52 weeks. Look at the leaderboard in the top 50. Mensik has the second best ace rate on tour. Second best. Behind Pecci Pericard, among top 50 players. Cobolli is 43rd. Cobolli doesn't really hit aces. He does, by the way, have plenty of explosive, fast twitch power in the serve, but it's always been the location serving and the ability. He's had no slice serve traditionally. It's just a flat and a kick, but the flat doesn't really go in much. So that's been the book on Cobolli's serve, but he's got to improve it. It seems like he is. I mean, this is just one match, so I'm not going to make any big statements about the improvement of Cobolli's serve, but this is the best I've ever seen him serve by far. And then on the other end, to neutralize Mensik's serve, he did a great job using his athleticism, blocking returns in play, and trusting his scrambling. You guys know I just recently did my movement tier list. I think Cobolli's a tier 1 mover. I think he's one of the best movers in the game. That's the first serve stuff. Second serve, as we know, there's a huge delta between Mensik's first serve and his second serve. just massive. He's got to shrink that gap. And the second serve was getting killed in this match. He only won 38% of his second serve points. He was 15 for 39. And on the grass especially, it can be so useful to hit a harder, slicier second serve. Mensik does not have that. It's a slow kicker, and Cobolli could have his way. We're talking about a blowout here, so I'm not done because there were more notes, more areas where Cobolli dominated Mensik. How about the forehand? How about these stats? Mensik, no winners, 14 unforced errors on the forehand off the ground. I'm not counting volleys. I'm not counting overheads. 0 winners, 14 unforced errors. Cobolli, sizzling. 17 winners, 5 unforced errors. It's basically as good as you'll ever see a ground stroke perform in the winners to unforced errors ratio. It doesn't get much better than that, 17-5. So good. So that's Cobolli and Mensik. What else do we got? Really curious to see how much further Flavio can take this, of course. Borges Khachanov. I didn't watch most of this, but I watched a good amount of it, and this is a total nightmare situation for Borges. I mean, this is the toughest loss of his career, almost undoubtedly. Borges was up 5-3 in the fifth, serving for it, and he played basically as badly as you can play a game. He blew a volley to start, routine volley to start the game. He double faulted twice, and he missed an easy forehand for an unforced error. This one went to a 10-point tiebreak. It was a pretty close, actually a very competitive 10-point tiebreak. Khachanov at 9-8 in a cagey baseline rally. He built just enough pressure and came up with a good combination of backhand down the line, a forehand down the line to force the error and take the tiebreak. For Khachanov, you just know what you're getting from him. And this is why he has made a career out of making fourth rounds at slams. And he has just made so many. Just a stalwart of consistency at this level as a top 16 seed, holding seed. And that's because physically, he's never going to go away. He's never going to get tired. Mentally, he's never going to go away. Every single point, he's going to be there and he's going to make you work. And he's going to bring some uncomfortable pace on the first serve and off the ground to some extent. But really, Khachanov, if you're not understanding him as somewhat of a grinder, I don't think you're understanding him that well. That said, I saw him handle the midcourt forehand in this match better than usual, and I saw him hit a really great backhand drop shot in the tiebreak. And Khachanov's drop shots are usually horrendous. So there's that. Shelton Fucsovics. Look, Ben has gotten some good breaks here. Shelton got Fucsovics at 33 years old coming off of consecutive 5-setters. Now he gets Lorenzo Sonego, who just played 5 hours against Brandon Nakashima. And Lorenzo is a very familiar opponent. Although their matchups have been close, Shelton has beaten Sonego the last 3 times, including twice at slams this year, Australian Open quarterfinal, Roland Garros first round. We talked about the backhand being the key for Ben at this tournament, and he has way upped the slice rate on it, which I think is really smart. Great adjustment by Shelton. Because as an opponent, if your plan is to just kind of pepper the backhand and to really make sure that there's a lot of volume going into that wing, it just becomes bothersome. It becomes less fun and less rewarding and just more of a pain in the butt to play that way when the response from Shelton is going to be throwing a ton of variety at you. And sometimes going, hard and flat, and then other times going, giving you the off-pace slice. It's a really good way to deter opponents from just picking on that wing. No, the challenge is that Shelton's backhand slice, I don't rank it as one of the better backhand slices out there. So the question will remain, will Shelton make a couple of unforced errors using the slice? Will he float some? I used to get somewhat critical of Ben for slicing too often on defense on hard courts, which kind of allowed players to take control of points and come forward on them. But on grass, I'm not so concerned about that. The one thing, of course, is that grass is a more forgiving surface for the backhand slice. You don't have to necessarily hit it 1 inch above the net. You don't need to knife it beautifully in order to get the ball to do what you want it to do on a backhand slice. That's what this surface offers you. So that's the one thing that stood out for Shelton. And then also just a nice job. You always like to see Shelton is doing a better job in this tournament winning in straightforward fashion and breaking serve a lot. Because remember last year, the year before, Shelton just wasn't breaking serve. He wasn't. And coming into this year, he and his dad recognized that 3 things needed to get better in order for Shelton to break more often: the return, the movement, and the backhand. And I think Chris McKendry asked him in the ESPN studios, what have you improved most this year? And he said, the return, the movement, and the backhand. So I just like the clarity for Shelton, both Father Brian and Ben. I like the clarity there of just diagnosing, like, I'm not going to be a top 10 player if I don't break more. I'm not going to break more if these things don't get better. And there's that hyper awareness there and that commitment to try to improve those things. I really like that from Shelton. As I mentioned, it's going to be Sonego next. And Sonego played a sick, really, really great third set tiebreak against Brandon Nakashima. He came up with some really good scrambles. The one knock on Nakashima, especially, oh, that's a pun, no pun intended. The one thing about Nakashima, especially if he's not coming forward, which I feel like he doesn't enough. I want him to come in more. But if he's not coming forward, he usually gives you a chance to get back into points. His forehand, he can push you. He might push you around with his forehand, but it's just underpowered enough that a player like Sonego, who has some explosivity in his movement, is going to be able to get to the ball a lot. And there were definitely some big defensive scrambles, but the big headliner here for Sonego and the way he won this 10-point tiebreak, awesome returning. Big forehand down the line return off of a first serve that was a clean winner. He forced a couple of errors off of his return. I mean, it was just great returning. And Nakashima didn't get a free point in the entire 10-point tiebreak. That's huge trouble for Brandon, because that's what makes him so good on this surface, is his serve and the purchase he gets out of that. For Nakashima, similarly to Borges, won't sleep great tonight. And I'm getting this from Vanch, who's a fellow San Diego native, therefore a Nakashima beat reporter, Vanch on Twitter. Brandon had 5 set points for a 2-0 lead, 2-0 lead. He had 3-1, 40-15 in the third set, which he lost. Then he won the fourth. Then in the fifth, he was up a break at 3-2, and he lost that lead. The other interesting stat here from Vanch is Nakashima now 0-7 in matches that surpassed the 3-hour, 12-minute mark. And, I didn't think that Nakashima looked particularly fried in the legs, at least visually from my eyes, but that number doesn't lie. And the knock on Nakashima, I did it again. The other knock on Nakashima, because there's 2, it's the lack of easy ball speed off the ground, and it's the movement and athleticism. He's not the most naturally gifted athlete, and maybe that leaks into his ability to win these real, long wars, potentially. All right, we've hit the hour mark. One last note. Krejcikova kind of hit a physical wall against Emma Navarro. And now Navarro has made the second week in 5 of the last 6 majors. So many of her matches are just such a grind, and she wore down Krejcikova here. Emma's like kind of like a version of Coco. Elite mover, elite competitor, a little bit less firepower, less pop on the backhand and the serve, but very similar to Coco in that respect. And she's continues to be consistent at the slams. But Krejcikova hits a wall. Rybakina played a rough match against a fellow great server. In fact, a top 5 server in women's tennis in Clara Tauson. Tauson beats Rybakina in straights. There were some awful looking finishing shots from Elena in this match. But what that means is that for an 8th straight year, or is it 7? Wait, no, it's going to be an 8th straight year, a first-time women's champion at Wimbledon, going back to 2017 when it was Garbine Muguruza. Doesn't mean, it might be chalk. If it's Sabalenka, nobody would be surprised. Swiatek beat Collins today, nobody would be surprised, but it is going to be a first-time champion. Let's end there. I will speak to you again for the quarterfinal prediction show. Might have a guest, might not. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.